Hi, folks. This is Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Maoist Third Worldist Collective. Today, I wanted to talk about a somewhat different subject, but it is related to something that I discussed about a week ago, and that was my podcast on entryism and accelerationism. Well, today I'm going to leave out the entryism part and just talk about accelerationism. However, I will be talking about accelerationism in a much different way than I did before, and perhaps in a way in which accelerationism is not generally used. I mean, usually when we Marxists, we communists, talk about accelerationism, what we mean is that we are talking about whether it is justifiable for us to engage in activities which would accelerate the process of the dialectic, leading to revolution happening more quickly than it would happen under normal circumstances. Well, that's not what I want to discuss today. Instead, I want to talk about accelerationism as it is happening in the world, not by Marxists, not by communists, but by leaders in the first world. In particular, Benjamin, aka Bibi Netanyahu, as well as all of his collaborators, including Joe Biden. It appears to me as though Bibi Netanyahu is literally accelerating the dialectic through his actions. Now, I suppose you could argue that maybe accelerationism isn't the right term. Maybe it's appropriate to just say, well, that is the dialectic. And I'm not going to argue against that. I think that certainly is a valid point, and you can talk about it in that way too. But it just seems as though everything is speeding up so rapidly, everything is accelerating. Um, all of these things are happening at the same time. Now, for a while, it was just the Russo-Ukrainian war, and then it became uh, Trump and all the charges, the felony charges leveled against him, and the fact that in spite of that, he is still running for the Republican nomination. Not only that, but he is leading all of his competitors. And so we may literally have a Republican running for president from prison. And conceivably, that could happen. I don't know how that would work out, having somebody elected president from prison, but I suppose that could be. There's nothing in the Constitution which would prohibit somebody who was convicted of a felony from serving as president. Whether he would be allowed by the Supreme Court, perhaps, to have a delayed prison term so he could serve out his presidency for 4 years in the White House, and then after that go to prison. Who knows? I don't think anybody knows what will happen. The world has become totally out of whack, and in all honesty, simply weird in my view. But when we look at what Bibi Netanyahu is doing, it does appear to me that he is, I mean, not intentionally. Certainly, Bibi Netanyahu is not a Marxist. He's a fascist of some sort. But his actions are actually speeding up the dialectic, and we are seeing this happening in real time. We are watching firsthand every single day new developments, like last night, the truce that lasted for a little while was ended. And now the bombing campaign now in southern Gaza is continuing. More innocent Palestinians have been killed. There really is not much more area for Palestinians to move. I mean, it is not called the Gaza Strip for no reason. It is a very narrow area, There really isn't that many places that Palestinians can go. So I don't know what will happen. It appears to me that the goal of the Israeli government, or at least part of it, part of the Israeli government, is to completely eliminate the Palestinian population from Gaza, whether by killing all of them or forcing, perhaps under pressure, other countries, including Jordan, which thus far has said it cannot take in any more Palestinian refugees, to do just that, take in more Palestinian refugees. Maybe that will happen, maybe it won't. Nobody really knows what will happen. Even an hour from now, things are happening that rapidly. Literally, we are seeing an acceleration of the process of the dialectic. The contradictions of capitalism, the contradictions of imperialism, the contradictions of empire are speeding up at a rate that I do not recall ever having happened before in my 67, almost 68 years. I've simply never seen anything like this. And I remember when the Vietnam War was a big thing. I remember being afraid of being drafted into the Vietnam War because I had a lottery number of 12. And the lower your lottery number, anywhere between 1 and 365, the quicker you were going to be drafted. Well, Nixon canceled the draft 2 years before I would have been drafted, so I was saved from that. My plan was to go to Canada to escape going to Vietnam. I was not going to go to Vietnam and kill Vietnamese people. That was a commitment that I made to myself. On the other hand, perhaps because of my autism, which at that time was called schizophrenia childhood type, maybe I didn't even need to worry about that. Maybe I would have been excused from the draft because of my diagnosis. That's a possibility too, although for some reason that never occurred to me at the time. I don't know why. I just expected that I would be drafted. Perhaps when it came right down to it, I would have thought, well, gee, maybe I could use my schizophrenia childhood type, which later turned out to be autism, as a way of getting out of serving in the Vietnam War. Although I think serving is kind of a bad word for that. But that seemed bad at the time. The killing of President Kennedy, JFK, who everyone just called Jack and Jackie. That seemed bad at the time. That seemed really bad at the time. I was obsessed over the killing of Jack Kennedy for years, over the Warren Report, over all the alternative accounts that came out challenging the Warren Report. Later, of course, more recently, we had 9/11 and all of the catastrophes in Afghanistan and Iraq, which resulted from 9/11. And I thought that was bad. And actually, when 9/11 happened, I had some hope in my heart that maybe, just maybe, that might encourage some kind of revolution. I was obviously wrong. I really was misguided. I now realize that revolution in the first world, it's simply not going to happen. When there is a revolution, if there is a revolution, it will be in the third world. And then maybe, if we in the first world are fortunate enough, it will spread to the first world, although I'm not entirely confident of that. My feeling is, and it's only a feeling, that the first world will simply be wiped off the map. It'll be only the third world, as I have said in this series of podcasts many times before. But when you look at what Bibi is doing, King Bibi, what he is doing in Palestine, literally destroying the Gaza Strip, killing innocent civilians. I watched this song last night with English subtitles that elementary school children were singing in school, talking about killing Palestinians, maiming them, slaughtering them. I was heartbroken. These poor Israeli children who have literally been indoctrinated into the ideology of Likud and of the parties to the right of Likud and the way of thinking of Bibi Netanyahu. Really heartbroken seeing children, people who know nothing more than what they're told, people whose critical thinking faculties have not yet been fully developed, singing about killing Palestinians and the joy they experience in their heart when Palestinians are killed. I was thinking, well, all I can hope is that someday these children get to meet children from Palestine and realize that they and the Palestinian children are basically the same. That the hope they were expressing for the extermination of Palestinians was so disgusting, and that they feel a sense of regret in their hearts. Will that happen? The way things are happening so rapidly, I don't know if there is enough time for that to happen. And I'm being literal. I simply don't know. Things are occurring so rapidly. The complete destruction of a people, the extermination of a population, and the Arab states in the region standing by and doing almost nothing, not offering any kind of solace, any kind of refugee status to these Palestinians, allowing them to suffer and to die at the hands of Bibi Netanyahu and his government. So, apologies for the emotion. Really, I shouldn't apologize for the emotion. I was watching Antony Blinken talk about the crisis in Gaza right now. He was stone-faced, poker-faced, no emotion at all. Maybe he practiced. Maybe he really does feel in his heart horror for the events occurring right now in Gaza. But if so, he is a really, really good actor. A really good actor. He managed to hide it very, very well. And it seems like every time I see Antony Blinken, he repeats that same improvisational poker face. One time after another, and then after another. How in the world does he do that? How can anybody speak about the suffering of Palestinians without feeling a tremendous sense of loss and grief for the circumstances that they find themselves in with the end of the truce? And who has the power? Not the Palestinians. They have no power. They have no nukes, as far as I know. The nukes lie entirely in the hands of Israel. Now, have they used them yet? No. Have some officials in Bibi's government said they might use them? Yes. Will they? Who knows? Who knows? The situation is just so atrocious, so unconscionable. I just can't imagine how anybody with a heart can be a Zionist. How in the world can anybody support the continued existence of Israel? I, as someone from Ashkenazi Jewish backgrounds, on all sides of my family, do not support the right of Israel to exist. That's a constant refrain, or has been a constant refrain by Israel, insisting that Arab countries support the right of Israel to exist. Well, here I am, a guy from an Ashkenazi Jewish family, admittedly someone who does not practice Judaism, who does not support the right of Israel to exist. Nor do I think anyone should have supported that right, since before Israel was founded, Jewish tanks went in and leveled Palestinian homes. That in itself should have been a disqualification for the establishment of the so-called state of Israel. It is a hall of mirrors that we are all trapped in. No matter where we go, we see reflections of Palestinians in this hall of mirrors. The faces of suffering Palestinians who have no recourse whatsoever but to die. Children, women, and men. Simply dying because this demon, and I don't mean demon, I don't believe that literally there are demons, but this metaphorical demon, Benjamin Netanyahu, has chosen a path of destruction, which in my view will in the end lead to his own destruction. So when I talk about accelerationism in this context, I'm not referring to accelerationism as it is usually used by Marxists and others. There's some people who are even fascists use that term, sadly. I am referring to the accelerationism which is being practiced by Bibi Netanyahu. And so in a sense, maybe that is a proper use of it, because this is a kind of fascist accelerationism being practiced by Israel. Although I'm sure that Bibi Netanyahu doesn't see it that way. He doesn't see it that way. To him, it is simply, I don't know, a kind of manifest destiny for the people of Israel to live in a place like this and to demolish an entire culture. People who literally have nowhere else to go, who are dependent upon Israel for their water. What do? I wish I could do something. I wish I could do something. But this kind of Israeli fascist accelerationism seems bound to continue. And given the support that Israel still enjoys, with some cracks here and there, but not many, from leaders of the West, it does not appear as though this tragedy, this travesty, will come to any kind of conclusion except whatever the acceleration of the dialectic produces, namely, well, first, obviously, the destruction of Israel. Israel is planting the seeds of its own destruction. Israel is literally destroying itself. That's how the dialectic works. The contradictions of capitalism come back to haunt the person who planted those seeds. You can't engage in behavior that Netanyahu was engaging in and not expect some kind of payback. Maybe it's a bit like the Hindu, Sikh, Jain, Buddhist concept of karma, minus reincarnation, minus transmigration. As you sow, so shall ye reap. Quoting from the King James or so-called authorized translation of the Bible. As ye sow, so shall ye reap. And all I can say, and I'm sure that Bibi Netanyahu will never see this video, I doubt that any of his co-conspirators in this act of destruction will ever see it either. But they will witness it. They will witness their own destruction. They may think they're winning, and maybe superficially they are for the time being, but time has a way of coming back to haunt us. This hall of mirrors that we find ourselves in, everywhere we look, seeing the faces of innocent Palestinian children dead, their corpses being wrapped up in canvas, thrown into the backs of trucks. What can we do other than mourn, hope for the rapid end of the first world, of the capitalist world system, and that sooner rather than later, the third world will be able to rise up and create a world which is much better. It's even hard saying much better, because what could be worse? I think much better. That's like saying the world is good. It's not good. So much better is a contradiction. I regret having said much better. I'm sorry. I should not have said much better. Much better implies that the present world is okay and we can improve. It's not good. It's not good. It's simply evil and destructive. And again, all I hope for right now is the destruction of Israel. This has been Mark from Mark A. Foster, Ph.D. Have a good evening.